Hello, how's everyone doing? Thanks for joining us here at Virtual RoberCon. I'm Chris Kocher. I'll be doing the Q&A, and I am thrilled to welcome the one and only Mr. Paul McGann to our virtual space here through the miracle of Zoom. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
very exciting.
Did you watch the This Is Your Life? I warned you that we made a little video, so.
Yeah, I watched all 7-8 minutes of it.
Yeah.
It's quite strange. It's a strange feeling. It's a feeling I don't think I'll ever get used to. You know, when you get it's a bit like looking at holiday snaps or something from years and years and years ago. It's weird seeing your career stacked up behind you. Anyway.
And there were many things that would not fit in that video. Many things that you've done that didn't quite make it in there. So.
Well, yeah, 40 years of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thanks again. People have discovered already there's a chat function down here, and there's also a Q&A function on the bottom. People can chat if you have specific questions. Feel free to mention them in the Q&A, and I'll shoot them over to Paul. And we'll get some good answers. But I wanted to start with 2021, believe it or not, is the 25th anniversary of the Doctor Who movie that you starred in. And
25 years already.
You're still being asked about it after all these years? Does that surprise you that there's still an interest in it?
Yeah, slightly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, particularly given how we felt after we'd made it and it hadn't been picked up. Because, the year or two afterwards, because we just assumed, well, I did, that it had been and gone. It was an opportunity missed. And of course, then there was a 8, 9, 10-year gap before the next series came back. So yeah, I am surprised. I'm hugely heartened. That if you'd have told me then, 25 years on, we'll still be talking about it, I'd have been thrilled. It would have softened the blow, let's say. The pain of it kind of disappearing. I was disappointed. It's one of those things when you're an actor, when you work, it's often things and all the time things are nearly happening. Things nearly happen. I was nearly in this, that nearly took off, I just missed that, so there's all kinds of doors you never opened, roads you never went down, things that just didn't happen. But anyway, yeah, but it's great to still be talking about it, because it means that Doctor Who survived. And, without catastrophizing or trying to, pretend that it was, life or death back in those days, there was a feeling, given that when we shot the movie, although we didn't call it the movie then, it had been what, 5-6 years since the series had been on TV. It would be, like I said, it would be another 10 before it would reappear. So really, it was all there was, and I suppose it nearly disappeared, but thank heavens it didn't. Because you'd have been talking to yourself.
What was it that originally appealed to you about the role? Was there something that eventually convinced you to take the role?
Yeah, and it was Phil Siegel,
producer, right?
Yeah, it was really his. I was skeptical at first. I auditioned along, as I'm sure, with a few dozen people. Around the time, and I was unconvinced, as I've said publicly before, that really I was surprised that they were approaching me or the likes of me. It just didn't seem to fit. It wasn't. I was surprised. I mean, I went up for the thing, and I did the best I could. But I'd kind of assumed, along with most other people, that it was for more of a comedian actor. I wasn't noted for comedy. I just wasn't. It wasn't my shtick. But Siegel was adamant. He said, "No, it's you. I was thinking, what's the catch?" And so when when he offered me the role, I still was kind of unconvinced, or rather for for say 3, 4, 5 months prior, he laid into me and he said, come on, you've got to take it. He helped me anyway get over what misgivings, but just, the thing is, when you work as a performer, particularly if you're a young actor, as I was then, I think you have to be, because it's a confidence thing. I think when it's such a big thing, it's a big role, and particularly with this, you're stepping into the shoes of people that have done it before. It's been there before. There's a lot of pressure, really. There's nowhere to hide. I was nervous, so I suppose that mixture. Phil convinced me, that I could do it, and when he did, we made it. So really, it was him. It's all his fault.
Well, he made a very good decision on that one for sure.
Well, I like to think so. Yeah, I know that when one of my brothers also, my younger brother Mark, he also auditioned. Well, he's admitted it. Maybe another one of my brothers. I think there's 4 of us. Maybe we all auditioned, and the other 2 just kept stum about it. But I know for sure Mark did, and I was always convinced that it was because Phil couldn't tell us apart. He was just hedging his bets. Anyway, I got the gig, and really, like I said, I mean, the reason I mentioned Phil is because it was really his, more than anything, as I remembered it, it was his enthusiasm, it was his passion for the thing. Amidst everything, at every level, Phil was so enthusiastic for it. He sold it not just to me, but I think to quite a few other people. If there's anybody, of course it was a team thing, but if there was any single reason for at that time for that Fox Universal film being made, it was Phil Segal. Definitely. Yeah.
I'll note to write Mr. Segal a thank you note.
He knows.
25th anniversary. I'll write him a nicely worded note. Let him know. Obviously, Doctor Who is very much a part of British culture. How much of a fan of it were you before you were auditioning or thinking about getting the role?
In a way, I think, particularly given that when we were children, I was a kid in the 60s, and I watched the first incarnation of it. We only had 3 television channels in those days, like everywhere else. So in effect, everybody saw everything. So whether you were a downright fan of things, you just watched everything anyway. I can still remember going into school as a child, whatever night it was on. Say it was on a Thursday, so you'd go in on a Friday, and in the school playground, kids would be reenacting bits of it. I can remember that. Playing the characters, I want to be the Yeti, this kind of thing, and so I guess we were all fans. We were fans of kind of pretty much everything. I wouldn't say I was ever, I didn't go full on. And I think probably by the time I was a teenager, once I'd seen David Bowie, I was gone. I was off down. I was off into that kind of rabbit hole, but yeah, I was a fan as a child, definitely. And he was my, Hartnell was my guy. He reminded me of my grandfather. He had a kind of, strange now even to think that, because I think he was only in his late 40s or early 50s.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
When he was probably 10 years younger than I am now, seriously. When he was making it, the big long white wig, and he seemed like and as a child, it was a strong image, this sort of almost Victorian, rather stern, but twinkly gentleman, he was my guy. He's my doctor. That ages me, I suppose. That dates me. Who was your doctor? When did you start watching?
Well, you, but and I would
You're
say
just saying that.
Weren't here, even if you weren't here. But I did start watching before that. But certainly, I loved you in the TV movie, and I also loved when you joined Big Finish as well later on, before the TV show started again, because you were kind of the current Doctor, the one that was, still had an uncharted future,
Mm.
So
It's a good time around, when would it have been? 2001, 2002. So there'd been that interim, there'd been already 6 years since we'd been in Canada and we shot the pilot. And it was still between, there was, still the interregnum. It would still be 4 years before Chris Eck would appear. And Big Finish appeared, and thank heavens they did, really, personally. It was one of the best things that ever happened, really, to me. It started a lovely relationship with Big Finish. Now I've made, a couple of hundred, maybe more, of these audio adventures. And in a sense, it was a no-brainer. I remember 2002. Yeah, it was around that time, and we made Shada, and we made, I think it was Zagreus at the beginning. At the BBC initially were involved, and it was a big deal. It felt like a big deal, audio adventures.
Right.
And really now, when you think, I've been on screen as the Doctor aggregately about less than 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
When you think,
right,
God, it was a 90-minute film and a 6-minute short. That's it. But I've been, it's been years and years and hundreds of adventures on the radio. This is where the Eighth Doctor lives. He lives on audio. So.
Right. And, again, I'm not saying this because you're here, but, your adventures are some of the best ones that Big Finish have made over the years.
It's just a lovely thing. At the time, I remember it was impressed on me, before the audio adventures started, that there was the novels, there were books. Mm-hmm. Doctor Who, and of course there were animated versions, and then the audios kicked off. So really, one of the strengths of Doctor Who is that it's able to take all of these different versions. In a sense, I like to think, in a way, if you look at the books and look at the audios, sometimes they look or appear to be not alternative histories, but just different strands of the mythology. There's something different in each. People have their favorites, and they find slightly different versions of the same stories, and that's great. That's rich, I think. But certainly, I would say this because I'm biased, but the audio adventures really are staple. They're even in the future, if anything were to happen and, TV was to be denied Doctor Who, then the audios would carry on. I'm sure it would just carry on. Yeah. It just could.
And that's thanks to Big Finish and the fans for, investing their hard-earned money into it. I always joke that I should basically just sign away a portion of my salary, every month, just right over to Big Finish, and they can.
It's expensive sometimes. It can be an expensive passion. I know, and I'm fond of saying that. The Big Finish has one business model. Essentially, the more you buy, the more we can make. That's how it goes. The better we can make them, the more resources Big Finish has. These things really are the strength of them chiefly is about the writing. If you have good writing, then your quid's in. It works then. And really, since the 50th, so 6-7 years ago, I detected, particularly going to the US, I think there was the autumn cons, Chicago, Long Island, straight after the 50th film. That seemed to be when, in the US, not the penny dropped, but it seemed to be when the audios really picked up in the States. American fans began to buy them, and that was a game changer. I know this is what Big Finish always wanted, because of course this is that's the place you have to aim for. When we made the pilot back in 96. That's what we were aiming for, because if this thing takes off in America, it will live on. It will live forever. This is where in 96, in a way that I suppose, crudely speaking, I suppose we were chasing a fan base that Siegel was convinced existed, at least existed in enough numbers. He wasn't even convinced that he was proved wrong when it failed to be taken up. He said, "No, they're there. I know they're there somewhere." And of course, he's been vindicated since. And now I guess you could say that it's really it feels like, anyway, North America is where Doctor Who lives. That's where the heart of it is. That's where the greatest passion for it is. It might be a kind of a British thing. It might have a British feel, or a British, an origin, a British heart to it. But it's very much an American, it's an American passion, and then more power to it. That's what's thrilling for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the TV movie for a minute, what are some of your memories of filming it? What was the most fun to film? What was the most difficult thing to film during the movie?
I can remember being, like I say, keyed up and nervous. It was a big deal. Got to get it right. Certainly, if I don't think I'd ever shot anything in North America either. So even that is when you're a kid, it's like, oh, here we go. It's a big deal. And like I say, you're stepping into someone's shoes. So but that's okay. That's the kind of pressure you like. McCoy was there.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for the first couple of weeks. And McCoy's been a lifelong friend. So that was good. It was good having him there. My agent was there, who happened, coincidentally, to be Janet Fielding.
Mm-hmm. Right.
She was my theatrical agent. And weirdly, we'd never had the conversation. It had been years since she'd been an actress and been in Doctor Who. We'd never talked about it. Anyway, now she was there. So, and we spent a few days just kind of, they were, I suppose, just calming me down a bit. They were all night shoots. It was cold. It was January in Vancouver. I can remember the first week for the excitement. Working with Daphne Ashbrook. Mm-hmm. Daphne, I can remember Daphne, who'd been cast and arrived, and then admitted that she hadn't the faintest idea what she was in. She said at one point, on the first or the second night shoot, she said to McCoy, in my ear, she said, "What is this? What is this? What are we?" And she'd never heard of it. She never, of course, she'd never seen it. And McCoy, bless him, spent the next couple of nights filling her in, telling her the story of whatever the preceding 20, 30 years of it. And now I'm glad to say there's no bigger fan I know than Daphne. So I remember those things, and that, it's just exciting. And it felt like it felt like a life changer anyway, just in a professional sense, again, just on a personal level. Our children were babies. There we were in Vancouver, when I'd had to sign this, when you shoot a pilot, you need to sign this contract. I'm sure it's still the same to this day, this prospectively, this thing might go. So a year later, you might do 6 series of it. It could be that you belong to them for 6 years, so you need to sign your life away. And so to me, it was like, wow, I remember someone on the production on one of the off days took us to look at sort of houses in the bay, because we might be back there in September living in Vancouver. The children might have to go to school. I can remember that feeling. And then it never happened. And that's what my job is like. That's what being a performer is like. Everything just nearly happens. You need this, and then 2 weeks later, you're doing something else.
It's not official until you're there actually doing it.
Always. Until you're actually in the boots, in the coat, on the set. Don't believe it. Don't believe it's happening. Yeah.
Ulrich in the Q&As wants to know, what was it like working with Eric Roberts?
I really enjoyed working with Eric. Eric and me, we took a week or two to get on, I think. And I think that was mainly because Eric didn't twig that it was me
Oh, really?
in the hotel. He didn't twig that it was the same guy in the hotel without the wig on of an evening that was on the set with the wig on during the day. Now I'm only half joking, because I remember sometime into the second week he went. I think I met him in the bar of the hotel. He said, "Hey man," and I said, "Yes, Eric, yes,
it's me. I'm the guy.
I'm the guy. Yeah, I'm the guy." But he was great fun, Eric, and quietly, I think, very brilliant, an unusual actor. I really, really liked him. He made everybody laugh, and he was, he camped it up nicely, and he was nice and evil, and I think everything he did worked. Everything he did. We still see each other from time to time. Now I'm getting nostalgic for when we can all turn up in the same room and be at a con.
Back in the day.
Back in that era. And every time I see Eric, we always laugh about things, and we got on great. And I think we did okay. I think we did. The scenes worked well, and I'd like to work with him again.
Well, if anyone's listening, we'll let Paul know. Let Paul and Eric.
If he hasn't retired, is he? I mean, I always picture Eric, one day just like retiring to his island or something, and just living it up.
He just seems to do an amazing number of roles, just in random cameos here and there, or little character parts. I think.
Did you ever see Inherent Vice?
Yeah. No.
See it.
Yeah, it's good.
That's Paul Thomas Anderson, and Eric. I don't want to ruin it, but Eric. Basically, they talk about Eric's character for nearly 2 hours before you see him, and then when you see him, he steals the picture. And Joaquin Phoenix is in the picture, the world's greatest actor. That's all I'm going to say. Eric's fantastic.
Right.
Eric is actually, he's a fantastic actor, a man of great charisma, I think.
I appreciate the recommendation. I will add it to my
Inherent Vice.
Whatever.
See it tonight.
All right, we will. Is there? What are the differences between an actor doing audio dramas compared to doing film or TV?
Mostly they're chalk and cheese. Sometimes as different as writing is to typing. I don't want to kind of be glib here, but in large part, when you do visual work, I don't know the kind of work, but often it's just about pulling the right kind of face and getting away with it. Whereas with the audio, you have only one medium. It's your voice. You have to do everything via your voice, everything with your voice. And plus, what makes it, in a sense, they don't compare. But one of the beauties of working with audio as an actor in a casting sense is you can play anything. You can be cast in roles that they would never touch you for visually, because you might not be, tall enough. This, that, whatever. You're not right. The wrong age, but whatever. Of course, on audio, you can basically play anything.
Right. It's all on your imagination.
That's the difference.
People imagine you.
That's because in a sense the listener does most of the work. I love it. It's my favorite, I think.
And the special effects are always great on audio. I mean,
better than you can ever shoot on. Yeah, that's it. Better than you can ever achieve on film.
Just imagine your own worlds and go from there.
Well, absolutely right, and that's what you rely on. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I know we're joking about this, but of course, that's in a way that's part of the magic of it. It's as it's as vast as your imagination makes it. It's as unlimited as you want it to be, or as limited as you want it to be. I can remember again going back to the old days when we used to be able to sit in rooms and do Q&As. I remember being sat once with Stephen Moffat, and Moffat was describing. He was running the series here in Cardiff then. But he was describing writing the pieces, and he said sometimes it's frustrating because we got to have these amounts of visual effects, and there's got to be a few explosions and stuff. He said, and just as a writer, he said, I hope you don't mind me saying, he said, that's not so interesting, not as a writer. Whereas with the audios, you can just do what you want. You can just have it the way you want it. And rather like, visual cartoons, you can perfect it. You can get it to a point where it could hardly be better, I think. Anyway, that's what I think.
Nice. Neil in the chat room wants to know, what was it like working with your son for a few Big Finish audios? And I guess I'll broaden that a little bit by saying, what is it like working with family? Because you and your brothers have worked together on various projects. What is it like? Does that have an extra sort of magic to it, but you also kind of know each other's baggage, like how
that happens.
How did that work out?
That happens. I suppose working with the brothers, it's a couple of times, and we worked once, there's 4 of us, 4 actors, and we're all around the same age. I think there's 4, I know there's not 5 years between the 4 of us. So in a sense, we're all the same age, really. So things can be a little bit intense. We've worked once on stage and once in a mini-series together. And once or twice, 2 of us have worked together, or 3 sometimes at one time. The advantages are that I think technically there can be, there's the kind of shorthand. You don't have to spend all that time getting to know this person. You can just get along and do it. And then the downsides, I suppose, are the opposites of that. Sometimes, you know each other so well. I don't know, it's a little bit like, I remember listening to Paul McCartney once on the radio describing, yet another recording session with the Beatles, and he said, he said we'd been doing it so long. Then, he said I'd bring something in, and I could see the others just looking at each other, the eyes rolling, or someone just whispering, "Oh yeah, he's doing his Elvis, or he's doing his, Buddy Holly, or he's doing, so you couldn't get away with anything." So, in a way, it's a bit like working, I suppose they were like McCartney's siblings by that point. So it got a little bit ruthless. But all in all, me and the brothers, I think we worked okay. I think we were glad when it was over. I love them, but it's great when it stops. Working with with Jake on the Big Finish was thrilling. Jake's a young actor, and those are among the first things that he did as an actor. So I'm glad he's not here because he can't get embarrassed to hear me say it. But now I'm speaking as a dad. It was just a lovely feeling. Lovely to see him. I don't know, take flight a little bit, and he was right in. Because he was right in the stories, the Big Finish stories. He was the. What was it? He was the grandson.
The great grandson.
The great grandson
of the Doctor. That's right.
You're right. So so immediately he was family, and so it felt special, But there's always a worry when if it's the same. If your child goes into the same line of business, or particularly if it's on the stage, of course, there's always a little bit of a worry that. But the first time you see them do it, it's like, oh no, don't do it. But me and his mum were relieved, let's just say, when we first saw him, because he can really do it. It was a relief. I think we saw him in a school play.
So if we're throwing out endorsements, I'd encourage people to find The Hanging Gale, which is the TV show that all the McGann brothers did together.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. I mean, it's a tough watch. I think it's a 4-parter, but it's set during the Great Famine in Ireland in the 1840s. So can't promise a lot of comedy in it.
No.
But it's worth a watch. And it was something that a couple of my brothers, in fact, wrote up and eventually took to the BBC, and the BBC made it. So a feather in their caps, really. But it was a great thing to work on. Yeah.
So was it easier to slip back into the role of the Doctor on screen when you did Night of the Doctor, having done Big Finish audios for
completely
years beforehand?
Completely, totally. It felt easy, or rather, it didn't feel like a. When we shot the Night of the Doctor, it was quick. Everything was quick. We had a day, I think, to shoot it. So really, in answer to your question, I'm glad that it was like literally just, give us the coat, put the coat on and just show me my rival, yeah. Whereas, had there been a 15-year gap, I think I might have spent the first hour just a little bit, just wondering where I was, but it was easy. It was great. So it was straight back in. It was thrilling, actually.
So Big Finish has a lot of Eighth Doctor audios planned for this year. I mean, there's already been the first part of Stranded. There's been the last part of the Time War, and coming up, you're in the War Master series, and also you're doing audios in this Time Lord Victorious story arc that is this multimedia thing that the BBC has planned for the fall. Can you tell us anything about your Doctor's role in that?
Oh, you know what? I wish, even hearing you say that, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm still a little bit mystified personally as to how the thing, which isn't unusual for me actually. I mean, it's always been the same, even though on pictures I've worked on. I'm slightly mystified as to how it's all going to hang together. So I'm rather embarrassed to say I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that. I love doing it, but even when I'd finished doing it, I remember straight afterwards sitting in a chair going, how is this gonna, where does this fit?
So, but when the script is baffling to you, how do you approach that as an actor? Like, do you just kind of hope that you're in the moment that is required in the script?
That's all you can do. That's all. Well, if it's a picture, you shoot them out of sequence anyway. So, you're forever slightly discombobulated. You never shoot them in story order. So, if you know what I mean. So there's always really, really the best thing to do. And a lot of the time, things are being rewritten, stuff is coming down at you. I know when we made Night of the Doctor, during that day, Moffat would write things, give me bits of paper, say this, do that, so you have to be prepared to do that. I'm not saying, we're making the whole thing up all the time, but generally that's the spirit. And so you're right, you need to just play what's in front of you, play the scene, rather like we are now. It happens like that, and then by some kind of magic and alchemy, clever people go away and stitch things together and put it all together. Everything hangs together well, and then you look back and you look quite clever that you managed to do this thing in order and even build a career. It always amazes me.
Well, I haven't mentioned yet. Oh, this way. Oh, no. This whole thing confuses me. Behind me here is the information on how to get an autograph or a one-on-one video with Paul after this panel. I just wanted to mention that if you hadn't already. I keep pointing the wrong way. Zoom is like backwards. I don't know. It's not that I have a problem. It's there somewhere.
Well, I don't see it.
I'm in there somewhere. It's that big white box behind me here somewhere.
There's a TARDIS flying off your left
On
shoulder.
this side is the information on how to get the.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's hovering off your right shoulder.
Everybody in the chat room is saying it's on the other side. Yeah, I know, but I can't. Okay, there. All right. Okay, all right. So anybody who's interested in that, definitely go to robercon.org. Check that out.
Yeah.
What do you feel are some of your favorite characteristics of the Eighth Doctor, and where do you feel that the Doctor and Paul McGann intersect or share any traits?
When talking to Phil Siegel, and right at the beginning, back in '96, when we were making the pilot, but of course, prospectively, this thing could have gone for 6 years, and Phil was adamant that, he said, look, a pilot has to be just so. We got to do this. We got to include all of these sort of iconic things. And he said, so don't worry about the pilot. We'll get through the pilot, and then when we get to the series, we'll, all those ideas that you and me have talked about for the last 6 months, we can begin to incorporate them and include them, because we'd spent weeks and months while he was trying to sell me the idea. I was kind of going, I was reluctant, going, no, come on, Phil, that ain't me. I don't want to, no, I can't, why don't I, I want it to be, actors always say, a lot of actors say, can it be darker? I want it to be dark. Nobody wants to be winning. Nobody wants to be like the good guy. It's like it's boring or something. Mm-hmm. You want to be the baddie, or you want to be kind of sexy, or you want to be kind of, ambiguous or something. Actors are quite cheap. So thinking back to those days, and some of the elements that Phil and I sort of agreed on, aspects of the Doctor, I was like, I can remember saying to him, Phil, look, this guy, he said, what do you think? I said, well, to me, he's of course he's a fugitive, or he's out on his own. He can't go home. Because I wanted to know, and I had to ask Phil, because I wasn't that steeped in the culture then. So why can't he go back to his planet? What happened back there? What happened with his, and Phil would fill me in on this kind of, on the mythology of it, what happened back on Gallifrey, and what was driving this guy, maybe, then, and I'm going, okay, well, that's it. He reminds me of my dad. Now it just sounds corny and a little bit, and I don't care. This is what I'm going to tell you. Because my dad had died a few years before. My dad had been this, my dad had been a naval person. He'd been anyway, I still missed him a lot. There were elements of my dad, and anyway, so I was thinking, that's it. I'll something to latch onto, and there were those things, and so we were going to include them. And I said, and I test Phil out sometimes. I'd say, Phil, I think there's something of the vampire in, and Phil rather patiently would go, okay, humoring me, and would sort of give me pages and include different things. And I think really I found, and I still do, that just technically, just instinctively, I always enjoyed it more. I always worked better as an actor, on film, I mean, particularly on film, how to put it, when I didn't give it all away, when I sort of kept something in reserve. I'm one of those kind of actors, I don't make the run-in so much. I'm not like, I'm not the kind of, I haven't got the sort of, that kind of energy that, I'm a slow burn. It's that kind of, that's the way I like to work, I don't mean like Gary Cooper strong. I wish I was Gary Cooper, but like that kind of thing. So in a sense, we had to sort of tailor it for that. You got to be realistic. I wasn't McCoy, or I wasn't, Eric Idle, who I thought that they were going to give the role to. It's that kind of thing. So now I've forgotten the question. No, except, so we tried to kind of tailor it so I could sort of do it, and I could make it look, and I could meet it sort of halfway with those aspects and elements of my own energy and my own personality that would make it kind of believable, and make it, do the naturalism naturally, and do the eccentric stuff well, and but we never got a chance. So it was only later on Big Finish that I think we could, when I first chatted to the people at Big Finish, we had a similar conversation, and how do you want to do it? How do you want to make the 8? And really in the scripts, throughout the noughties and when the Big Finish scripts got off the ground, and we began to incorporate some of those aspects of what Phil and I had talked about. And sometimes it's difficult, he's tortured later on, particularly when you think of the Time War episodes and those strands of the story. He's reluctant, he has a conservative streak, or while you can't say he's a pacifist, there's a sort of, you know what I mean? There are, because of course the Doctor isn't a political figure, but you have to decide where you're going to, where you draw the line with him, and and the 8th isn't like the 7th, and it's definitely not like the 10th. There's different. You're going to get a different reaction from the 8th, and there might be a kind of stoicism or a steadfastness, or there might be a, and you just have to decide. And that's really for the writers, and the writers ask you these questions. How do you want us to do it? What would you like to include? Almost like a recipe. I hope I'm not ruining it for everybody now.
No, it works. Magic, Paul. No.
This is how it works, because like I say, you're saying, your remark that, about sort of personal traits and person. Yeah. I mean, really, if there's a crude way of explaining acting or good acting, it's when you can kind of meet, a character that's on a page, a character that you're casting, a thing that you're given, and you particularly, if you're working in naturalism, say, you're shooting television or you're shooting films. Of course, it's best to try. Like I said, the only crude description I could give you is to try and meet it halfway with those habits and traits and aspects of yourself that can make it look like you just invented it. like you're the person saying those words. There we are.
It helps. I've always wondered, what's it like seeing your face all over Doctor Who merchandise? Now, the oddest one I remember seeing was a mug that was shaped like your head that people could drink out of.
Yeah, I have that downstairs somewhere. There's a plant in it. I have stuff growing out of my head down on a table downstairs. I've got to say, right at the beginning, years back, when these things first appeared, models, I suppose the kindest thing to say about them 15, 20 years ago is I didn't always recognize myself when I looked at them. But they've got a lot better since. Nowadays, now there's ways of it's not unknown now that we sit for a session to be photographed in 360 degrees. So the likeness is absolutely incredible, and then they go away and make the model. So you get so the likenesses now almost are pretty impeccable. Some of them are slightly too real. But you know what I mean? In the same way that high def is a little bit too high def. Who wants to see every blemish? But I don't know. 15, 20 years ago, some of the models and stuff looked a little bit hit and miss, a little bit skewed.
I mean,
it's a weird. It's something I've never. I don't know that you ever get used to. You don't get used to seeing, little nodding heads of yourself, and why should you? But it's funny. I kind of like it.
But the coolest thing is you did for the 50th anniversary. All the doctors ended up on a stamp. I mean, that must have been.
That was cool. That was cool. Yeah. I mean, in a way, that was unprecedented. I remember one of my kids going, "I thought you had to be dead to be on a stamp." And he only had a point. Except that year, I think you could also be in the Olympics. There were like UK athletes on the stamp. So which and funny enough, that's all when I was a child, that's all I ever wanted to do was to be in the Olympics. So it was like I thought, that's it. I finally arrived. I finally got my dream. And there we were on stamps. But that's a buzz, I mean, where else are you going to be on a stamp? That felt like a big deal. I was happy.
See, if that were me, I would have bought like 1,000 of them and like used them for everything, just to pay my bills, or send Christmas cards or whatever.
I've got to say this because people send me things. I get things that particularly meetings and conventions and stuff. I often take away stuff. It might be a T-shirt, some kind of Doctor Who thing. And sometimes if I go out and ride my bike or run around the block or whatever, that there have been times down the years, I've actually had one of these T-shirts on, and either my wife or one of the kids goes, "Dad, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't go out in that." That's like, there is a line. It's great. It's nice to see them, nice to have them. Just don't wear them. Don't put them on. There's something that's not cool.
Wear them around the house.
Wear them around the house. That's fine. Yeah. Wear them when you're cleaning up.
So somebody in the chat wants to know if you could choose any doctor or companion team. I think this is as Paul McGann. If you could choose any doctor and companion to travel around with through time and space, who would it be?
You mean another doctor, you mean?
Yeah, like it could be the 8th Doctor and Paul McGann, which might be confusing, but
I know the companion is, and the companion is Ace. I'm mad about Ace.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my private passion. I think we're all a little bit mad about Ace. It's a guy thing. And Jodie Whittaker.
Mm-hmm.
Just Jodie Whittaker. I'm yet, maybe I never will. I've never met Jodie. She's someone as an actor I've always admired anyway. Now I admire her completely. I think she's a fantastic doctor. So yeah, so I want to be, in fact, I'm dreaming of it now. Me as the 8th with Jodie and Ace on some kind of caper.
There you go. Maybe again, write your emails to Big Finish now, and
get in it. Yeah. Petition them. I think they just need 5,000 signatures or something, and by law they have to do it.
Start an online petition, something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've had a lot of remarkable roles. We went through the video at the beginning, including, of course, Withnail and I. Did you have any inkling that would become the cult hit that it is in Britain and even in America when you were making it?
No idea. No idea. It was really exciting. That was the first picture that we ever did. And that in itself is just it's just an actor thing. It's a performer thing. Most of us, I know when I was at the school and, the kind of background, particularly the working class background, very few of us from the kind of background that I came from went to the theater even. Our parents just didn't go to the theater. So, you got into acting via television, you watched actors on the TV or watched them on films who went to the cinema. So you wanted to be in the movies because that's to be an actor meant to be in the movies. And when I trained as an actor, I thought, God, I think the only ambition that I felt that it was possible to have was that one day somebody would put me in a movie, and it seemed like it was even now thinking about it, it's so exciting. But of course it was such a long shot. And it took me 5 years, and then he did, and then I ended up in that movie with Richard Grant. He'd never done a movie. Ralph Brown, he'd never shot a picture. Bruce Robinson had never directed a picture. He'd been in a few, and he'd written a few, but he'd never directed one. So we were all doing Richard Griffiths had done a few movies. Who played the uncle. So in a way, he was the kind of elder statesman on the set, and he was able to hold our hand through the thing. But we were just thrilled. We were like, we were just like kids. It was fantastic. So, I mean, even had the film never been seen by anybody ever and kind of been completely obscure, I'd still love it. I would still have loved it because it was that time that somebody put us in a movie. It was just the most exciting 6 weeks I can ever remember. And looking back, we didn't want it to end. And while we were doing it, we realized pretty quickly that it was good. Everybody that was working on it, all the old hands that were on the crew and the camera people said, you know what, boys, this is really good. This is unusual. It's all working. I think someone's going to like this. We knew it wasn't a big budget thing. I think it was £1 million. Even in the mid '80s, that wasn't a lot of money. And I think that, so which I guess made us more excited. And I think we might have dreamt at the time that it might be what they used to call an art house hit. You know what I mean? Like it might do the rounds for 6 weeks, which in fact it did, and then disappear, which in fact it did. And then had another life. 10 years later, just suddenly then became, now everyone in the world has seen it. So it's kind of joyous because, like I said, but on top of the dream that we all felt of just being in a film, I can't tell you how exciting that was. Because suddenly there you were, it was your whole fantasy. And even if I'd never been in another film, it wouldn't have bothered me. Honestly, it wouldn't, because I did a film. I could call my mum and dad and say, somebody's put me in a movie. How about that? That's how it was.
My friend Jan wants to know, what was it like working with Handmade Films, and did you actually meet George Harrison during that time? Or
Handmade were great. We shot that in '86. Handmade were making a film or 2 pictures a year, and would do for another couple of years. They'd made the Monty Python things, and it was George Harrison's company, so it all felt like, again, on top of all the excitement I've just described, we couldn't have been with a cooler bunch of people. I remember halfway through the shoot, Ringo Starr turned up on the set. There's a photograph of me and Ringo somewhere. Actually, you should find that, and if you can, and put it up. It's out somewhere. When we were shooting the flat scene, Ringo turned up. During those weeks, I met George, and he was fantastic. Great. Again, how exciting do you want it? I'm from Liverpool, man.
I was going to say,
you know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah, and suddenly there you are, and there's George, and and they couldn't have been nicer. It was a great time. It was just a very exciting time. And like I say, and in a way, George and them, it had to be them. Nobody else could have made Withnail, really, or not made it like that, not made it the way it should have been made, and left all the good bits in.
Right.
I was very proud of it, and they were really proud of it. Meeting George was thrilling.
I bet.
There it is. Look at that.
There it is. There's the picture. Thank you,
There's
Chris.
little Ringo. Now, that's Bruce Robinson on the right. That's me, of course, on the left, the baby me, and there's little Ringo in the middle. Ringo, I know Ringo takes. If you look at the credits of the film, next time you see it, one of the. I think he's some kind of consultant, Richard Starkey, MBE.
Nice.
So I think it was some little tax dodge, probably. I think he had to be in England for 160 days a year or something. Anyway, blah blah blah. But he turned up, and he was charming.
Nice. So we're almost wrapping up. Just to remind, I'm still pointing the wrong way. It's this way. Nope, it's that way. Over here, information on autographs and video one-on-ones. RoberCon.org. Check it out. Thanks to Leanne for setting everything up. She was great. So have you been recording anything at home? I know some Big Finish folks have been recording from home. Have you been doing any of that during the whole COVID
we
thing?
did some. We did the Big Finish. We did a box set back in March, and the other one. What's the other one you mentioned? The one I'm still mystified about. The
Time Lord Victorious.
Time Lord Victorious.
Yeah.
We did that one in May, but nothing since. So maybe. I think there'll probably be more coming up sometime through the winter. I've been doing audio books as well. I'm going to start another one next week. It's an unusual time, but of course, these are things that we can do from home. So that's what I've been doing. One of my kids has got a studio upstairs, so we can read books. I'm going to read next week. We start the second volume of a Third Reich history called the Hitler Years. There you go. I'll give it a plug. Frank McDonough. We did episode 1 earlier in the year. So I'm going to be doing episode 2 of that. And that's my other life, you know. And that's a side of my job I really like. I like the voice work. I like to do the narrations, the documentaries, that kind of thing. It's a good thing to be good at.
Is this where I admit I would buy a recording of you reading the phone book, or should I not mention that because that sounds?
You can say that.
Okay, all right.
I take that as a compliment.
Okay, all right.
Do people still have phone books?
I don't know. Maybe you read stuff on Google. I don't know. Read Google searches on various things. I don't know.
It's not the same, is it? Phone books are so. Remember, you know, there used to be movies where characters would have to look through phone books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and even if you were famous in a city, people could still find you in the phone book.
I always like the scene where they found somebody and then they tore the page out, like of a public phone, and you're like, well, that's really rude.
You
like,
know, in all the old film noirs, that's what they used to do. Yeah, they tear the page out. Yeah, yeah.
So what's last question is what's next for you? The lockdown is kind of easing up a little bit.
No, not for us. No, we're going into sadly in the UK we're going into a second bout of it.
Oh yeah.
You know, cases are doubling and tripling almost daily. So which was expected. You know, that they said as soon as, you know, autumn came, that's what would happen. Work-wise, I don't think I'll be. I know I've got a picture to shoot in February. But really, we're just going to have to take what we take until then. That's the royal we. Read the books and see what happens. But, you know, I say that, but you know what? I could get off the line to you and pick up my phone and I could have been offered a picture for next week. It's just that this is how we've always worked. They tend to cast things 11th hour. What are we today? Was it Saturday today?
Saturday, yeah.
You know, I could get a job tonight that they start to shoot on Monday. This is how it works.
Right.
You know, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not. You know, hopefully
soon. Hopefully back up. One more thing? Somebody asked in the chat room. Do you have any words of optimism or encouragement in these kind of dark times that we're in because of COVID and everything else that's going on?
Only just love each other, you know. I mean, but also, you know, I find it quite tricky. I'm sure I speak for a lot of people. You know, back in February, March, April, look, first thing to say is I live quite well. We live well here. You know, we have means and we have space. You know, there's 4 people in this building, but you know, we're not under each other's feet and everything else. Whereas I've got friends who are living in 2 rooms, 1 room. You know, people are falling out. People are finding it hard. You know, it's okay here. But still, you know, most of us have found, perhaps for the first time, what it's like to be thrown back on yourself. Sometimes living, what's the most delicate way of putting it? With your own mind or your own thoughts, probably more than you like. You can't get out and just mix it with your friends and socialize. Most of the things that you're used to. If there's any advice, it's really just let yourself off the hook a little bit. Take it easy. Try and be mindful. I never thought I'd use that word in public, but there you go. But now I've learned to. I might as well admit it. I've been doing a lot of meditating. I've been learning to meditate. It's something I always swore I'd do if I had the time, kind of thing. I'm like a lot of people, you know, you think, oh yeah, it sounds a good idea. Maybe when I've got the time. Now I've got the time, I'm doing it. And now I swear by it. There's a way to, you know, to slow down, calm down. Just, what's he saying, Withnail? Find your neutral space. You're having a rush, you know, be seated. But really, it's okay. It's okay, but just, you know, but above all, be kind. Whether it's online, you know, be kind to yourself. Remember what, because most days you could be forgiven for thinking the world has gone nuts. You know, we're living in strange days anyway, with or without the virus. But you know, now's the time to be kind. And remember, you know, that most of the rest of the world is kind. You know, really. It is. It is. It is. Be kind to yourselves, man. Tell them the doctor sent you.
Well, that seems like a good place to wrap it up. Be kind. Always good words. Again, thank you, Paul, for joining us.
What a joy.
Real awesome to talk with you. Again, autographs and wait, this way, that way.
Oh, yeah.
We'll point both ways. Autographs and videos, robercon.org. Check them out. Obviously, if you were here, you could sign stuff for us, but, it's kind of hard to do that from the other side of the ocean. So thanks to
pleasure.
and your agency for figuring out another way to do that.
Thank you, and let's hope let's hope the day comes soon when we can all be on the other side of this. We can all be in the same room and just laugh about all this, and remember what it's like just to to socialize and just throw our arms around each other again, and I hope let's hope that's soon. Let's hope this lifts soon, and hopefully by next spring we can all get back to some better normal than this. But thank you. Thanks for looking after us.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, sir. Take care. We're going to end the panel. Check out everything else at RoberCon this weekend. Lots of stuff. Go to the website. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure. God bless.
Take care.